Hello, I'm ANEKA from Made to Sew and welcome to my Sewing for Beginners series. In this short video, I'm going to be showing you how to thread your sewing machine with 3 threads on the top. This will allow you to use a triple needle. So when might you want to use a triple needle? Triple needles are perfect for top stitching and for decorative uses to add 3 rows of stitching at the same time. So let me show you how to thread at the machine to do this. So let's look at how to thread your sewing machine if you're wanting to use a triple needle like I've got here. Now this simply replaces the standard needle on your sewing machine. If you don't know how to do this, then I do have a video that shows you how to change the needle. To thread a triple needle, you're going to need to have 3 threads. In this case, I'm working with 2 spools, and I've also wound a bobbin in the same colour thread. By all means, you can replace this second spool with another bobbin if you would prefer. It simply depends on how much sewing you're going to be doing. Find your spool pins. On my sewing machine, I have a horizontal spool pin and I also have a vertical spool pin here. So that gives me 2 spool pins that I can use. On your machine, you might have 2 vertical spool pins, you might just have 1 horizontal spool pin. You may need to look in your accessories tray to see if you've got an extra spool pin. This is for another of my machines, and you simply need to position this into the top of the machine to provide yourself with the second spool pin. So do have a look, because it does depend on the machine you're working with. I'm going to take my first spool of thread and I'm going to position that onto my horizontal spool pin here, with the thread going in the direction that the manual suggests, clockwise. I'm then going to position my bobbin onto my vertical spool pin, and I'm also going to position my other thread on top of the bobbin. However, my manual recommends that I separate them with a spool disc, so I'm going to do that. Just like so. Position your spool disc onto the horizontal spool pin if required. Now you're going to take the threads off all 3 spools and they're going to come at a 90-degree angle to a little hook at the back of the machine here. And they're all going to go behind the hook, just like so. You need to make sure that the 2 threads on the vertical spool pin, the bobbin and the thread spool, are moving in the same direction. The thread is coming off the spool and the bobbin in the same direction. And the 2 threads are just going to go underneath this little hook at the back here. And the majority of the threading is going to be the same as how you would standard thread your sewing machine, but you just want to make sure that there aren't any differences with when you're doing a triple thread. So I would recommend referring to your manual if you're in any doubt. The threads are going to travel down towards the front and they're going to be positioned in between the tension discs here. Now on my machine I have a small little metal plate that sits in between the 2 tension discs. I'm going to have my horizontal thread going to the right of that plate, and then the 2 threads that are on my vertical spool to the left of that plate. You may or may not have a little plate that divides in between your tension discs. If not, you would keep all 3 threads together and try and hold them in an order so that you don't get them twisted as you thread the sewing machine. Allow the threads to travel around the bottom and back up, trying to keep them in their particular order. So 1 thread on the right, 2 on the left. Position the threads through the little eye of the metal lever here, turn the hand wheel if required, and then bring them back down towards the needle. Try and keep the threads from twisting throughout the threading process. As you near the needle, you can follow the standard threading procedure. Some machines do have space at the top of the needle here for different needle positions. So you can position the 2 threads on the left-hand side and the single thread on the right-hand side. Once your threads have got to the top of the needle, you can then thread the needles. I recommend positioning your presser foot down. You can raise the needle to the highest position because you're not going to be able to use the needle threader. You're going to need to thread these from the front to the back. Thread each of the needles individually from front to back. Take your time. If you're struggling to thread the needles, then I recommend cutting the threads at an angle. This will help you to thread the needle. You can also try using a handheld needle threader, and I have a tutorial that shows you how to use that. I'll pop a link to it here. I positioned the thread on the horizontal spool pin that was on the right hand side of my tension discs in the right hand needle. The other two threads, it doesn't really matter which you put in the left and which you put in the center needle. Once all of the needles have been threaded, you can raise the presser foot and position the threads so that they are in the center of your presser foot and out of the way. Position the foot down and begin sewing. You may need to play with the stitch that you're doing and the tension to achieve the perfect result for what you're planning on creating. And here you go. Here is an example of a triple stitch. And on the back, we have a single bobbin that passes between the three threads. Thanks for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the tutorial.